Well, hello model car fans. Welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Revell, and this week's build here is a Ferrari 365 GTB4 Daytona Spyder, which the Daytona name was not official in the name. That was kind of a nickname for it, as Ferrari didn't actually call it that. But this car has many names, and of course this is the one used in the Miami Vice show, and it has its own story, and it's a replica as well. And there's quite a story that goes along with that too. So that was kind of fun to look into and research a little bit. I mean, I knew it was a replica, as there are reasons behind that from when the show was filmed, and replicas were really starting to appear at the time anyway of very valuable cars. Now, the actual Ferrari, the coupe came out in '68 and was produced from '68 to '73. And the Spyder came out in '71, which was the roadster version of that 365 GTB4. That was the fastest car in its time. It was a 175-mile-an-hour car. Did 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds. It was a fast car. At that point, the only one to beat it was when the Countach came out shortly after that. But this was a very fast car and very different car from what Ferrari was producing compared to some of their other cars. So it was a little bit of a departure, but not quite into the supercar category, but getting there. And a pretty interesting car. Now, for me, I always thought the Spyders looked awesome, the convertibles. The coupes look kind of funny to me. And, I'll get into that for a second. But when it comes to the real cars and the show, this car had its own story and many different names. Being the fact that it was a replica, it was actually the Mardikian 350 GTS Turbo is what the name of this car was. It was going to be. That has to do with Al Mardikian. He contracted Tom McBurney to actually make 6 cars for him to sell at his gray market dealership. And he was an importer. So he had contacted him and wanted to make some of these because these cars were becoming $1 million cars in the late 80s. And it was actually becoming somewhat of a trend to take a coupe and convert it into a roadster or Spyder. So there were people actually doing that too, just like the Testarossas were not available in a convertible form. And those were, Ferrari had made their own concept car but never went any further. But this car, they did make some convertibles, but being the fact that there was only 124 Spyders made, they're very rare. Tom McBurney, he ended up making 4 with the Mardikian name on them, and there was some problems and some issues. I really don't know what was going on, but I guess there was a falling out. Supposedly, McBurney made a 5th car but for his brother and didn't put the Mardikian name on it. But he had the molds and he could build more cars. But there were some things going on. Now, they were unsold and they were kind of sitting around and they were at a dealership, and that's where they were seen by Universal Studios, and they wanted to purchase the 2 cars and use them in the show Miami Vice. And one of them was red, and that was the number 1 car, and it was built on a 1976 Corvette chassis. And then there was the number 4 car, which was built on a 1981 Corvette chassis. So it's kind of fun reading about that. And those 2 cars, a little bit differences between the two. The 1976 car, it supposedly was wrecked when they purchased it and built it into the Daytona. So there's a story about how they found out one wheel was 1.5 inches farther back than it should have been. And there were some issues with that car. But those 2 cars, they were used for the show. Now, they were in both the first season and the second season and 2 episodes of the third season. But once Universal Studios got their hands on and started to use them, there were some things that were going on and some things that changed. One of the first things, in the original name, the Mardikian 350 GTS Turbo, these cars were turbocharged motors. Don't really know much about the power and everything that went into those. But one of the first things the studio did was yanked out those motors and put in just carbureted 350 engines in it. Made it easier. They were both automatic cars and just made life easier for the production schedule and everything. They were both black and then brown interiors, but there were some differences that went along during production and everything. So, one car was used most of the time. The number 4 car was the camera car, which had, mounts on it for that. And both cars still technically exist today. But there are some differences and issues, and I was kind of experiencing that, researching these, and really getting into it. So before I get any farther into that, let's take this outside and look at it in the sun. Well, here we are out in the Arizona sun, looking at this thing on the rotisserie. Looking really good here. This gloss black, this is the nicest it's ever going to be, because it's a pain to keep this gloss black scratch free and dust free. I've already got some scratches in it, you can see, and fingerprints as I was cleaning it off. And this one is the MCW enamel paint with no clear coat. It's this shiny out of the bottle, airbrushing it, so I didn't clear coat it. Just put a couple of the decals on it and showing it off, and sprayed some of the interior, and that's looking really good. But I had to bring out the other one, so since I hadn't shown the other one, let's see here. The other Miami Vice car, the Testarossa, that's in the second 2 seasons. Of course, this one I built a couple of years ago on the channel. You guys can pull up its videos as well. But just pulled it off, cleaned off a little bit of dust from just being in my display case for almost 2 years. This is a 2022 build. But this is also the Monogram kit, but fun kit to build. And I had to go out and find the sister of it, the convertible kit that Monogram came out with, or Spyder, whatever you want to call it. And kind of looking forward to building that one too. But look at that in the sun here, in black and white. It's all right. We'll head on back inside. All right. So now that I've got that going on, obviously Ferrari was suing Miami Vice, the production company, trying to get these cars taken off the screen, as they were getting a lot of notoriety from it, but they didn't like the fact that these were not real Ferraris. And Ferrari was kind of notorious for going after everybody. They even sued Tom McBurney, even though he really wasn't making them much at the time. But as the show's popularity increased, the demand for the cars went up, and he started to make some. Rumor is there's like 100 replicas out there now. I don't know how many of them he actually made, but there were some issues and some things going on. And then researching these cars, what was kind of interesting was in some of the videos, there's a chrome molding on the windshield. Well, apparently that's car number 1, and it had the chrome moldings around the windshield, but only in season 1. Now, when they refurbished these cars, fixed them up a little bit more and fixed a few things and made them a bit more equal for season 2, they redid the moldings in black on the number 1 car. So after that, all of them, the windshield moldings are black, which is why I left them black on this one. They both had outside door handles. The real Ferrari has a little pedal handle up top, so the handles are definitely there. The model kit has emblems here, but I guess the Ferraris didn't. I added the front emblem and the rear emblem. The number 4 car had a plexiglass across the front, and the headlights were easily visible. They modified that and fixed that to hide the headlights a little bit better. And they also redid the interiors on both of them. One of them flat out had a Corvette dash, and then had a fiberglass piece across the top to give it the Ferrari dash look. That dash was mostly black and the front was beige. One car's steering column was brown, the other car's steering column was black. And then the boot back here, early on, one of the cars had the tan boot, and I guess the other car didn't even have a boot. It kind of makes it sound like it didn't. So they we're kind of running without. This one actually has a black top, which fits really nice. I painted it black, but you really don't see the tops up. There may have been one episode or not where the top was up, but in season 2, they replaced these with black ones. So if you see them with black ones, that was all season 2. But I mean, technically, it'd be correct. The interior that's in here is much more Ferrari-like. It's actually pretty accurate to what the Ferrari would be. And these seats, the seats are pretty distinct to Ferrari. And then also the Ferraris actually have, the real ones have a vent window that's on the doors. Monogram gives them to you. They're in there, so you can make it look more like an actual Ferrari Daytona Spyder. And the kit's a little bit more accurate than the real cars are as far as the body line goes and everything. Now, the kit does have the 350 Chevrolet engine and a lot of the stuff right there, but it's a real simple kit. So it's got all of that. Whoops, I just knocked off an exhaust. And it's, pretty accurate to that, and has a small block. It's funny because it has a manual tranny, but the real cars are automatics. And, there's a gas tank back there, but there are multiple gas tanks and dry sumps and different ways of doing that. I'll re-glue that later. But when it comes to the cars, there were a number of things, like there's the ones on the show, they did have Ferrari emblems on them, but that was it. The kit doesn't come with them. Then I added the ones here on the wheels from my Ferrari decals. It does have the actual lock cylinder down here that the real car has, but it has the door handles up here. And then the front's pretty nice and accurate and pretty cool looking as well. So the kit's really nice and really easy to build. And of course, this is just a real quick build anyway, just doing it for fun. But there were multiple things. And like I mentioned, Ferrari was suing them, and of course it's famous that they gave the show 2 of these, and part of the story was they needed to destroy these cars. So on camera, they blew one up, and actually what is the first episode. So they blew one up, but what it is rumored to be was there was actually a third car being built, and production was kind of halted on it. So they blew up a shell of a car for the episode. It had no motor or tranny in it, but it was a shell of a car. It's my thoughts that was the third car that they were building as a spare or another backup car. So they blew that one up, but both of these cars, number 4 car, number 1 car, still exist today. One of them is unrestored. The other one's the number 1 car, which is the main hero car, was in the Volo Museum for a while. I'm not sure where it is now. And they restored that car. That car was pretty trashed and well used, and rumored that it had a chassis swap, but later found out that it still had its 1976 chassis, but they had 84 titles, Florida titles, because California, there was some title issues going on with the cars as well. Lots of drama and all that. It's kind of fun to read about some of that stuff, but getting the actual resolutions or what was going on with that. But interesting piece of history in that show. There were 2 real Ferrari GTS that appeared on the show. One yellow one appeared in one episode, and it's shown. And there's one scene where Crockett is actually sitting in a real one. The vent window's there and everything. He's sitting in it. And that's in 1 or 2 episodes. I guess the pilot, it's in there. He's in a real one, but he doesn't actually drive the car, and it's not seeing him driving it, and all the ones he drives are these replicas. Also, another thing that I decided to replicate for the kit, the real ones, the amber lens is on the outside and the red lens is on the inside. During the show's filming and everything, one of them looks like it has all 4 red taillights, and then one of them has the taillights like this. The yellow one's on the inside and the red one's on the outside. That's how I decided to replicate this one. That was wrong, but correct for how the car was at the time. But that car, when it was rebuilt and restored, the lenses were flipped to have the amber ones on the outside, which is more correct for the real car. So there were things that had been done to the car to make them look a bit more correct and more accurate and fixed up. So all of that's kind of fun to read about and everything, but This was a fun one to build, and it was a quick build. I didn't put a whole lot of effort and time into this one. It was just kind of in between projects, or when I had something I wanted to do, I did do it. And it was kind of fun. It's also Angelo's fault, which he kind of knows. We were out screwing around, driving around, going to hobby shops and pawn shops, or not really pawn shops, but other shops. And there was one he wanted to go to that was mostly die-cast cars, and he picked one of these up. So now he had it here in Arizona. I had mine. We're just talking different stuff and hanging out. Next thing you know, he's got his kit out and he's working on pulling the parts off the trees and playing with it. I go and pull my kit out. And now here it is a few months later. Mine is done. His is done. We're moving on to the next one. And of course, I had the convertible version of this out, and I was kind of playing with that one too. And Angelo had to go and buy that one as well. So maybe we'll do a buddy build with those as well. But anyway, just kind of fun to share that with you guys and share this car and this build with you. And it's a real nice kit, real easy to build. I remember building it as a kid and how easy it was, although I don't think I painted the body. This one is painted. But I didn't go as far as to correct all the little things that I was starting to find out were not truly accurate to the TV car, as I thought it was pretty accurate. And it kind of is. It's got the Corvette chassis and the Corvette engine, but some of the body things that are on here are much more correct to the real car. The interior is much more correct to the real car. Vent windows are there. So it can give you a much more accurate replica, but it's still a replica, but it's still cool. And to me, it was just a fun car to build. Now, I do have one of the Fujimi Enthusiast Series ones of this kit, and as I do like the Spyder, and I'll eventually build that as well, but that one's got probably 4 times the amount of parts this one has. But anyway, still fun build, and hope you guys enjoyed it and enjoyed the history and some of the stuff I dug up on the car. Unintentionally, it's just when I'm looking into the real cars and the story behind the cars and what happened to the cars after the show. That's kind of interesting too, that both cars got sold to somebody else in Tennessee, but that had something to do with that same guy actually built the third one for the rest of the seasons. He built the fiberglass copy of the Testarossa and put it on a Pantera. So it's really sounded like that was part of the trade. He got these 2 cars for him in lieu of him making the replica of the Testarossa for the show as well, so they can have their stunt car not ruin the 2 real cars. But anyway, that's kind of going to finish it for this one. So you guys, thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and all your comments and everything. I really do appreciate you guys. And you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time.